in more than one piece. Oh, yeah, here it is. Portland or New Jersey. You know. But yeah. So there's that. Let's see. Oh, in case anybody's wondering, I usually listen to classical. It is when I can pick it up. Everyone assumes I listen to reggae or hip hop or some such thing, but if I can get the reception to work. Oh, there it is. This is the most worn out pencil of all time. See? Anyway. See, yeah, the point of this is I mean, this is more of a political cartoon than anything else. Most of the drawings that they auction off at Wonder Woman Day are big, huge portraits. Usually, some homage to Linda Carter from the 1970s TV show. I am ashamed to say I'm a much better writer than I am an artist. Notice how there's nothing in the way of background at all. You know, I just, you know, when I was younger, you know, it's one thing, but now, you know, with the carpal tunnel syndrome, you know, it literally hurts after a while, and so, you know, I don't draw nearly as much as I used to. I'm way out of practice. Can you see?
Yeah. Okay. I think we've actually got enough.
I need to do this anyway. I got this done. The deadline is soon, actually. To be listed on the posters and publicity for the on-site art auction must be received by October 1st, and that's yesterday. But the absolute final deadline for art, with no guarantee of name on poster and press materials, is October 15th. So yeah.
The questions. The questions.
I got plenty.
Okay.
One thing we wanted to ask you was, when did you start growing dreadlocks? Or why did you start growing dreadlocks?
Why is because I saw this guy on an NWA video, and I don't even know who the guy was. Still don't. But I just remember there was a very brief cameo of a guy with dreadlocks on an NWA video back in 1991. At the time, I was homeless, and I was hanging out at this guy's house, Tony Sweeney, and I was watching videos at his place, and there was this guy with dreadlocks, and he looked cool. So in the back of my mind, I thought, okay, well, maybe one day I'll get dreadlocks. And then, let me see, about 5 years later, in 1996, a fellow student at San Francisco State named Siobhan Brooks, she twisted my hair in March of 1996, and yeah, it hasn't been cut or nothing has been done with the dreads since. Siobhan Brooks, very proud of her. When she twisted my dreads, she worked at the Lusty Lady in San Francisco. And she was part of the effort to unionize the Lusty Lady. The second sex club in American history to make the attempt, but the first to actually succeed at unionization. I think she's, Local 790 out of Oakland. And so, this got her on an HBO documentary. I never forget, I was in Las Vegas one day, and, you know, I was at my former roommate's house, and I look on the TV, and bam, there she is on an HBO documentary. And the scene I saw her in was at the bargaining table, you know, talking about unionization. I was like, great, that's Siobhan, you know. And I'm guessing that the footage from the documentary was taken at the same time that, she was, going to San Francisco State and twisting my hair.
Yeah, you talked about this before, but using sex appeal as a way for political action.
Yeah. This is Sarah Manlove, aka Mistress Peace. And so this is my flagship. This is what I lead with. On the homepage of my website, there's the short story, The Strange Case of Sarah Manlove. And it's all about a woman that looks like Tina. Damn fly. Shh. I hate insects. Ugh. Anyway, I would leave the window open so the fly will fly out, but the noise from outside will mess with y'all. Yeah, okay, so on the homepage of my website, there is this short story, The Strange Case of Sarah Manlove. It's about a woman that looks like Tina Fey from Saturday Night Live. She wears that outfit, stands on a street corner, and raises money for peace movement. And I want to lead with that. The best case scenario would be is if I get $5 million somehow and could make a movie based on her, and yeah, I don't know what the odds are of me ever getting $5 million, but it would take at least that much.
What are some of the scenarios that Sarah Manlove gets in? What are some of the plots for adventures and whatnot?
She seems to be a magnet for the stuck-up, for the snide. She is the natural adversary of all the Paris Hilton types, going around toting chihuahuas in their purses and such. And so, like, one of my favorite dynamics is how she'll stand out there passing out flyers, raising money, giving speeches, and in some Confessions of a Shopaholic type will come along, and talk smack about her. And, she fends them off. My favorite scene in the story is when she's at this cafe and these Paris Hilton, Britney Spears types accost her at the cafe, and they are conducting what they call a fashion intervention, where they're going to drag her off to the mall and they're going to, take the costume off and, put her in a dress and some high heels, and she basically stands up to him and she says, back off, I ain't going out like that. And yeah, I tried to create the ultimate positive female role model, Thus far, as I'm concerned, the best possible female role model for women is Captain Janeway from Star Trek Voyager. Xena's cool, but you can't beat Janeway because Janeway is all about the positive future that we're supposed to be fighting for, Xena is just, she's cool and all, but, in the final analysis, she's all about the past. She's all about savagery, whereas Captain Janeway is all about, the future being better than the present, the ever improvement of humanity, enlightenment. And so because she symbolizes that, Captain Janeway from Star Trek Voyager is the ultimate positive female role model. And I never miss an opportunity to promote that. In fact, I met Kate Mulgrew in Las Vegas. She was at a Star Trek convention, and we didn't have time to talk. She was sitting behind a table, and it was like a mile-long line wrapped around the corner of folks trying to get autographs and whatnot. I just passed by on my way out, and I said, Miss Mulgrew, it's an honor to meet you. You are, what did I say? I said, she's the greatest role model any woman could ever have, and she blushed. And she actually said, oh, thank you, young man, da 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 da. And yeah, so that was cool.
So you said the movie would cost $5 million. Would there be a lot of special effects in the movie?
No, but the costume, I would want the costume to be as good as any of the costumes that you see in like a superhero movie. Like when Ben Affleck played Daredevil, he had to dip himself in that goo, and then have the cast made of his body and whatnot. So I'm guessing that something similar is going to happen, with whoever I doubt I'll get Tina Fey to do that. I'd probably have to cast an unknown. But yeah, I want the costume to be, even though it's the story is set in the real world, at the same time, I want the costume to look as though she is an actual superheroine. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, I don't want it to be where, you know, on screen you're seeing some half-assed patchwork where, you know, the audience is looking at it and going, okay, you can tell this is homemade, and then you're not taking it seriously, you know. So yeah, when you see her on screen, the key is that, you know, what you're seeing is you know, an actual superhero in costume. So, I suppose most of the money is going to go toward music, because I got a soundtrack in mind, you know. There are certain songs that I know it would cost a fortune to get, and so that's, you know, so yeah, I mean, the soundtrack to the
Which
movie
songs?
is,